Welcome back to MonsterTamer, a 2D Pokemon-like RPG created Phaser 3. Previously, for our in-game events feature, we focused on updating and refactoring the logic tied to our NPCs and their animations. If you missed the previous videos, there'll be links in the video description to the source code up to this point, as well as complete source code for this video. There'll also be a link to the previous videos if you'd like to catch up, so let's get started. Next up, for our in-game events feature, we need to update our map data and tile to support our events. For this, we'll be adding new objects to our map data, and these are going to be our triggers for our events in our game. What this will look like is we're going to add a new events layer to our map data, and we'll create a brand new object to represent our encounter area for where our player will be able to trigger our event from. This will be very similar to like what we did for our encounter areas, so our yellow on our map, and these red blocks will be our event triggers. And then for each of our event blocks, we'll create a brand new class called event in tiled, and this will have our structure that we want for each of our event objects. Currently, this will be very basic, but we're just going to have a unique ID for each of our event zones in our game. So it's been a while since we last worked on our level data in tiled. So in case you need to re-download the project, or if you're new to the series, there'll be a direct download link in the description of this video to the complete tiled project if you want to download that now and follow along. There'll also be a link to this page here, which is the GitHub repository for MonsterTamer, and this is the release where we have all the assets that we use in our game. The zip folder that we'll be downloading will be the MonsterTamer tiled assets zip folder, and we'll want to open up that now, and we'll open up our My Custom Town level inside tiled. To start building in our event objects, let's make a new object layer in tiled, and so we'll do new layer, we'll do new object layer, we're going to call this events. Now we need to add in our objects that's going to represent our event object. So if we choose our tool for adding in a tile, let's go to our collision tile set. We'll choose our red tile and let's add that in front of our sign down here. So one thing that's different between our event objects and our original encounter zones is we won't be adding in a tile for each of our spaces. We're just going to add in one object and we're going to define our width and height properties on this for what we want this encounter zone to look like. To do that, we just need to update our width and height on our game object, and that's going to stretch it out to fill up the area that we like to do. So for our first encounter outside our house, we're just going to trigger our mom showing up and telling us to look for the professor. We want this to block off where our player can move to when they first start our game. So we're going to have it be 3 tiles long by 2 tiles down. So for our height, let's do 128. Now for our width, we're going to do 192. And now we're going to have our area here for our encounter. For each of our event objects, we need to give them a unique ID. That way, back in our code, when the player overlaps with our encounter area, we know which event to trigger, and we can use that for knowing which events have already been triggered in our game. To do this, we're going to follow our pattern. We'll create a custom class. Then that way, our custom properties will auto-populate for the object we're adding. So we come up to View. Let's do Custom Types Editor. Let's add in a new class. We're going to call this event. Here, let's add a new member. We'll have an integer, and we're going to call this ID. We'll hit OK. Now back in our editor for our class, let's choose our new class. So we'll do event, and now we have our ID with our default as 0. Let's give this an ID of 1. Now we need to add in one more event area, and that's going to be here for when the player goes to leave our scene. This will be the trigger for the professor showing up and giving us our monster. To do that, let's select our current object. We'll do right click, we're going to do duplicate. And so now we'll have 2 objects in our event layer. For this one, we'll just need to update our width. So it's only 2 wide, so we'll do 128. And then let's drag this up so then it blocks off our exit from our town. Finally, we just need to update our ID, so we'll update it to be 2. And now let's save our level. Now that we've added in our new objects, we just need to export out our data into a JSON format, and we'll update our game to use the new JSON file. So we go up to File, let's do Export As. We're going to call this main_1.json. We'll do save. And now that we have a new JSON file, we just need to update our game code to use that new file. So now that we updated our level and we export out our JSON file, let's jump back over to our code. In your project, we'll want to update our main_1.json file that's located under assets, data, and then we'll have our JSON file here. We'll want to replace this with our new export and add it to our project. And once we do that, if we start our game and we come back to our browser, if we do new game, we should see that our game still loads without any issues, and we shouldn't see any errors in our console. And so we should still be able to do things like enter in our houses, talk to NPCs, and have our items show up in our game. Alright, with that brings this video to an end. In our next video, we'll continue working on updating our game to have our new event areas. So we'll update our world scene to use our new event objects from our map data, and then create those zones in our Phaser game. So as a reminder, there's a link in the description of the video to complete source code for this video, and as always, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the content. If you did enjoy the video, please consider liking the video and hitting the bell icon to be notified when the next video in the series is released. For more great Phaser 3 content, please see the links on your screen now.